What is up, guys? Toss a coin here. I'm going to be showing you how to make a underground base or outpost without using the Elder Altar or any mods. This can all be done in vanilla. If you like what you see here, then make sure to stay tuned so that you can see how to make this. Alright guys, so I lied to you a little bit. I'm not going to show you how to make the last base, but that's because with making these underground bases, you have to be flexible. So just follow along with me. We're probably not going to have the same end product, but the process should be the same. As soon as you defeat Eikthyr and you get your antler pickaxe, just come out to the Black Forest, pick one of these large boulders, and start mining under it. Your base is going to change and be different, all depending on the size of the boulder, the shape, if the land you are digging under goes up or is flat. It's all variables that are going to change how your end product looks. Now, what makes this such a good build and an early game base is the fact that you can just pop a workbench down at any time and you can repair your antler pick because the workbench is going to be sheltered underneath the boulder that you're carving out. And don't be afraid to break your workbench whenever you're done repairing, because you're going to end up placing it down a couple more times in different places. And this is going to happen eventually, but as you're clearing it out, you're going to see some empty pockets on the edges of the boulder, and that's okay because later we can come back and fill it in. It's not a big deal. Also, we can pop down a campfire while we're down here to make sure we keep on getting our rested buff. We're sheltered, so you know it's going to be +3 comfort. Really nice bonus. So here's where the big uh-ohs happen. As you're pickaxing this boulder, you know, mining it out, eventually things don't go as planned, you know, and you kind of just gotta roll with it. So like in this instance, I have a big hole pop open in the top of this boulder, which is not something I want, but we're gonna make it work, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. Also, just a side note, make sure to put down a bed every once in a while and sleep so that the monsters stay away. So now I'm just gonna show you how I filled up these gaps that popped open earlier. All you have to do is just take out your hoe, make sure you have some stone, pick the raised ground option, and just give it a couple clicks where you gotta fill in that hole. And if you raise the ground too high, it's not a big deal. We can just take our hoe and flatten it back out later and make it look much nicer. And you'll never even know that there was a hole there in the first place, and it's going to look really natural, especially once you flatten it. If you have the harvester tool, you can add some grass on top. It's not a big deal though, because it ends up looking really nice anyways. So I didn't really feel the need to show it, but I basically just took some wooden beams and started outlining around that hole that popped open in the top of the stone. And now I'm just trying to add a little roof. As you can see, I'm making something for the smoke to escape from inside the building, making the best of what happened here. And now I have a chimney that's formed without even having to break one in. Next up, I'm going to add wood floors to put my workbench on. Also, it just looks a little bit nicer. We don't have to do wood floors in these types of bases, especially if you're just trying to be cheap with them. But I think it looks nice. It's a nice little addition, dresses up our little cave base. Something I like to do to dress up the wood floors a little bit is I just like to turn them 90 degrees every time, and it makes a little checkerboard effect. It just looks nicer. So when making an underground base, you have to stay flexible. The hoe is probably going to be your best friend to flatten a lot of the ground, especially if you're trying to add a bigger crafting item like the kiln or the smelter. You're definitely going to need to flatten the ground, and it's not always going to work in your favor, especially if you're doing an underground base with some kind of slant above ground, you know, where you're working into a hill. It's a lot easier when the boulder you're working under is on flat ground, but if there's any deviation on the floor level, then usually whenever you're working with the ground, it's hard to flatten. You can easily also fit the smelter down in here, so if this is going to be kind of like your little smelting / forging outpost, totally works for that purpose. It does start to get a little cramped once you add the kiln and smelter, but nonetheless it can still serve as a nice little cozy base. If you do decide to add the kiln and smelter down into one of these underground bases, you need to get creative with your placement of your other items, like this campfire or your bed or anything like that, because you have to be efficient and effective with what little space you have down here. Speaking about being efficient with your space, a good place to put your bed is up above your head. That way it's out of the way when you're walking around, but you'll still be able to access it later. You just put a little ladder up or something, it's no big deal, and it stays out of the way for the most part. Once you're finished with the inside, you can just come outside, start walling yourself off from the rest of the world. It really isn't too hard to put a door up and some walls on the outside. I trust you guys to be able to figure this out on your own. If not, you can just watch me do it. It's no big deal. If you end up having any little cracks to fill, don't worry. Just use like the angled walls or some of the 2x1 wall pieces. It'll fill in the cracks, no problem, and it'll look a whole lot cleaner. When you're filling the cracks, some of the placement on these walls can be a little bit finicky, but just take your time trying to get your mouse in the correct position, and you should be able to fill in the holes no problem. So this is the final product, and I bet you can barely even see it from here, so let's go and head on over. Alright, front door, little chest by the front door. More or less everything you need for an outpost. You can definitely squeeze a smithing station in there. Got your bed, kiln, got a smelting station, little fire spit over your campfire, some extra storage. It doesn't have to look this way. It's totally up to you how it turns out, but this is just an example of what it could be like.